Gobble gobble one, gobble gobble two.
This is the worst.
Welcome into the Worst Fantasy Show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay, here with you on another glorious Sunday morning. It's week 13 of the NFL season. We have only got the rest of today, tomorrow, and one more week before the fantasy football playoffs. So all of these matchups are that much more crucial. Just quickly recapping from Thursday, we had the Lions and the Bears. The Lions defeated the Bears 23-20. The Cowboys and the Giants in a suck fest, where the Cowboys defeated their division rival 27-20. The Packers and the Dolphins did battle on Sunday Night Football, with the Packers coming away 30-17. And finally, the Chiefs and the refs defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 19-17. So we have 4 games of data to work off of to make our start decisions for the rest of this week. So I love when we get in a situation like this because, if you're trying to decide between a floor play or a ceiling play, obviously how your matchup is going to be helping determine those decisions and making them a lot easier for you. So, again, if anyone happens to jump in and jump on, we'll always prioritize questions in the comments. But until then, I'll just take some questions from the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. And again, shout out to fantasysportsadvice.network. It's like a social media site for fantasy sports. So if you haven't checked it out by now, please go and do so. It's run by my good buddy, Tyler Bradley. So let's get into some Sunday questions.
Riddle me this, Batman.
So we've already got some questions flowing in on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. First question of the day in full PPR: Jalen Warren or James Conner? Even with the PPR, I'm personally still going with James Conner, in my opinion. It's a tough matchup, but I'm trusting the starting running back there. We got another one here. Michael Pittman, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson start 2 in full PPR. It's tough to trust Pittman. I think Pollard's in for sure for me. I actually think I would go Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson here because I think Pittman is just so much more hit or miss. Whereas like Ramondre kind of has a gross floor because for the most part, he does get that starting work. Raw Boy's in here earlier. What's up, my man? Got a question. Need 2 Evans, Kyron, and Justin Jefferson in full PPR. That's rough. So again, I think this for me is dependent on. I think this is dependent on the rest of your matchup. If you've had any Thanksgiving special action, either you or your opponent, I think the floor is Kyron and Justin Jefferson. I think potentially the ceiling is Kyron and Mike Evans. Justin Jefferson's been kind of struggling. Yeah, see, this is perfect. You have Bowers. So you are able to bank on a huge game already from your tight end. So Mike Evans, to me, has a larger gap between his floor and ceiling, right? Like it's a good matchup against Carolina. They might just not need him. They might just use those 3 running backs again, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and Sean Tucker. We kind of saw that last week. Mike Evans to me could very much finish with like a huge game or just like 3 for 50. Whereas Justin Jefferson, I think last week, was kind of crazy that he didn't have a reception until overtime. So he would have really only had 1 reception last week, and it just kind of turned into the Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson show. That does concern me a little, but I still feel like Jefferson just has such a floor, and the matchup against Arizona is a pretty juicy one. So I think if you have Bowers having already played, so you already had a monster game, you can take the floor and just play it safe. I think I would go with Kyron and Justin Jefferson there. So that's, again, just like I was saying at the top of the show, the Thanksgiving games are going to be very that's going to very much help me sway my decisions. If I had a monster game, if I feel like I'm ahead by a lot, I don't need to necessarily take a guy who is swinging for the fences or the floor. A better example than Mike Evans. Yeah, and you also had Josh Jacobs, so that's just, again, topping icing on the cake. But I was about to say, Mike Evans he's got a safer floor, but I'm thinking more of like the MVS play today, right? Marquez Valdez-Scantling going to be a popular play on a week where there's no bye weeks. So you're going to have most of your lineup in. It's like, what is the floor that you're playing MVS above? And I think that's where, again, if I have Bowers and Jacobs already in my lineup and I'm crushing it, I'm not trying to stick MVS in there above like a safe floor play, most running backs, for example. So that's just kind of what I mean by, letting, and on the flip side though, even if I had a great week and my opponent is also crushing it and I feel like I still need a big ceiling, then maybe I do take the MVS type of plays, right? So it's just, what do I feel like my team needs? Do I need the safer floor? Or do I need the big ceiling pop? All right, let's grab a couple more of these Fantasy Sports Advice Network questions. Again, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll always prioritize those as much as I can. But we got a good one here. This one's kind of juicy. Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, or Tank Dell start 1 in PPR. So I thought they were going to say start 2. And then, just to help answer the question still, the way I prioritize it is Cortland Sutton here is the clear one. He's just been getting the most consistent volume with Bo Nix. They seem to have a good relationship and a good rapport and chemistry. Like, we wish that Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray had the rapport that Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton have, right? And like the targets and everything like that. So I would prioritize Sutton and then Tank Dell, who has kind of struggled this season, but in a matchup against Jacksonville, I think he could pop this week. And Amari Cooper just hasn't really found that stride yet with Josh Allen. And I'm hoping that, for the sake of my Megala Bowl team, that I can get him off my bench and in my lineup at some point during the playoffs. But I kind of need to see it to believe it. And I'm not even talking about like, oh, he has to have a monster game. I just need to see more route participation, more targets go his way. I need to see a little bit more involvement from Amari Cooper, frankly. And I think this is the game where, again, so many teams are playing this week, and I had better options, so I was able to put him on my bench. I'm hoping to see the game I want to see from him so that next week, when there are 6 buys, that I can get him into my lineup with a little more confidence. Raw Boy with another question. In my other league, I need a flex, Higgins or JSN PPR. Yeah, I'm going with JSN. The JSN breakout seems to be in full effect. I like T. Higgins, which is funny because I traditionally don't like T. Higgins. I don't like drafting him as the thing. I like playing him in certain matchups. I think it's a boomer busty type matchup, but JSN, the breakout, just seems to be in full effect right now. DK Metcalf, although he is playing, was on injury report. Same with Tyler Lockett. They're both playing through injuries. It just seems like JSN is the guy there right now. Shout out to my guy HoofTube, who took the JSN side of the bet between JSN and Lad McConkey that we had. But yeah, I think JSN has just been so much more consistent in a PPR format, whereas with T. Higgins, it's, you're either going to get like the monster 2 touchdown game or 3 for 50. So I think JSN's a little more consistent there. But if you're down bad enough, and but again, even JSN had it. He's really been crushing it, just going absolutely insane. I even took a lot of him in best ball this week. I just want to pull up the stats here on JSN because I was about to say T. Higgins has the capability of a 200-yard, 2-touchdown game, and can JSN get there? And it's JSN literally did it 3 weeks ago against the Rams, which is kind of right when the breakout started. He went 7 for 180 and 2 touchdowns, and then goes 10 for 110 against San Fran, and then 6 for 77 and a tutty last week. So that's the last 3 weeks. And against the Jets, the Jets defense has been very much in flux this season. Yeah, I think I like JSN for the consistency. All right. See here. I was trying to reach for my water, and I apparently don't have it at all. Whatever. All right. Start 2, AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladd McConkey, and Khalil Shakir. Well, obviously AJ Brown. That's a no-brainer. Okay, so AJ Brown. Oof. The answer should be Marvin Harrison Jr., quite frankly, but I think this is very much the decision of if you're Raw Boy, shout out to Raw Boy who had Brock Bowers and Josh Jacobs in one of his lineups. So you're already just way ahead. I would take McConkey. I feel like McConkey has the safest floor. It's a decent matchup against Atlanta. I do like Khalil Shakir also, but I think McConkey just has the safest floor. But if you're down bad, if you had some plays that didn't go your way, and you're facing Raw Boy who has Bowers, and you know what I mean, you're facing someone who is popping off, and your team struggled through the Thanksgiving stretch, that's where I would flip, and I would go with AJ Brown and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I would hope that, and I've kind of snuck him into a couple best ball lineups because it does feel like they have spotty performances due the Cardinals offense and Marvin Harrison Jr. specifically with Kyler Murray. So I think if you need the extreme ceiling, then in that situation, I would go with AJ Brown and Marvin Harrison Jr. But for the most part, in general, and especially if I have had nobody play or if I've had good plays, I'm bolstered already. That's where I'm probably going AJ Brown and my boy Ladd McConkey. Ooh, Quentin Johnston or Calvin Austin in the flex. And this is an ugly question.
Go fuck yourself.
Wow. Do you take the random shot on Calvin Austin or the random shot on Quentin Johnston? I think both are just as viable. This is true coin flip to me because the matchup against Cincinnati presents itself well for Calvin Austin to catch a long touchdown. And by the same token, the matchup against the Atlanta Falcons presents well for Quentin Johnston to have a bounce back when nobody believes in him and he's been one of the most dropped players. Man, that's oof. Look, the Steelers fan in me wants to say Calvin Austin, but I actually think the answer ends up being Quentin Johnston. And I think it's just one of those things of everybody kind of tried to jump on that bandwagon. And as soon as he had that crazy bad game last week, instantly is getting dropped everywhere. I think he could have a decent game against the Falcons. That's a game that I think is a bit of a sneaky shootout. Both of the defenses are okay, so I do think it's a little bit tempered. But I think that's definitely a game that hits the over. I could see that being a 50-point game. So I think the answer very grossly is Quentin Johnston. Because Calvin Austin, really, that's really deep, but the matchup's there. So I get it. But I think final answer is Quentin Johnson, but that's a rough one. That's like a deep league question. We got Sean Luke. What's up? Edwards, Taysom Hill to get MVS in my flex. Oh man. Damn. Is it Taysom Hill time? Is that what it is? Look, the thing with MVS is it's very much like he's either going to catch a long touchdown or get you sweet fuck all. There's just no situation. And look, I am a little biased, I'm going to say, because holy shit, am I overweight on Taysom Hill this week in my best ball? Like, I've been taking so much Taysom Hill that I've got a couple lineups, and it's funny. I was doing it this morning, literally this morning, doing the last of my best ball drafts on Underdog. And there's this guy. Why am I forgetting his name now? He's always in there. It's just some dude that's like always drafting with me around the same time, like early in the fucking morning. So we were drafting that. I took Taysom Hill and Kate Otten. Which is like not a normal thing to do in basketball. So it's like in my flex, basically, I'm flexing a tight end, and I also had Taysom Hill. And it's because I think both of those guys could smash today. Like I think Kate Otten could have a literal Brock Bowers type game. Carolina is ranked 32nd against fantasy tight ends. So if you have Kate Otten, he's a smash. But Taysom Hill, like I think I have him in at least 50% of my lineups this week because I just don't see a scenario where he gets. Like the floor is so ridiculous now when you're like, well, he's going to run and catch and throw. It's like, well, fuck off. Like there's not a player that you name there that has the floor to do any of those things. Like again, MVS could outscore him potentially if he just catches a long touchdown or two, right? I don't see any scenario really where Leggett is able to outscore Taysom Hill, unless again it's just like Taysom Hill has a bad day and Leggett happens to catch a random touchdown. And same for to me, it's Taysom Hill. Like it has to be Taysom Hill. It's gross, and I'm not saying he's gonna have another like 40-point game like last week, but again, it's just like if he runs the ball 5 times and catches it 2 to 4 times, like already just that baseline of volume, that's like almost like an immediate 6 to 8 fantasy points in my mind of like if he sucked, right? And it's like any of these other guys could suck and just drop you a flat fucking 0. So it's like already he has the best floor, but then also like they're overutilizing him so much because their wide receiver cores bang the shit. Like Bub Means is on IR. Chris Olave, I think, is legitimately done for the year. Like they're relying on dudes like Cedric Wilson and Mason Tipton and obviously MVS. That's why Taysom Hill's getting so much work. And then again, it's like even the backup running backs haven't panned out. So it's like he's the backup running back to Kamara. He's the goal line running back. He's the backup quarterback. Oh, and he's like basically the starting tight end. Like it sucks, but I think it has to be Taysom Hill. Mobin, what's up? Full PPR, Evans or Mooney, Adams or JSN. Oof. Well, earlier, and Sean said it, JSN over Higgins. I agreed on that. I think Higgins is an extreme upside play, and yes, he can always hit that like 200-yard, 2-touchdown game, but JSN also did that 3 weeks ago against the Rams, and I just think he's the guy there right now. So I think JSN over Adams. This is a situation where even in full PPR, I think Mooney is getting cute. I think I would take the upside of Mike Evans. I mean, it's the Carolina Panthers. All it takes is for Mike Evans to catch a touchdown. I think he's very capable of that in this matchup. I could see Mooney. I mean, again, if it turns into a crazy shootout with the Chargers, I could see Mooney having a really good game. So it's not me poo-pooing Mooney. I just think Mike Evans, in that situation, I would have a hard time benching him. Like we earlier had Evans and Justin Jefferson, right? And I'm very much a proponent of start your studs. I don't like the type of questions where it's like you're trying to get cute with a Darnell Mooney over a Mike Evans. When you're asking, should I bench my stud? if it's for another stud, that's where I'm like, okay, well, now we're talking about two studs. And again, it's the decision sometimes process over results. Like even if Darnell Mooney does end up outscoring Mike Evans because it doesn't mean that it was ultimately the right decision, even though if that sounds stupid to say that, but it's just Mike Evans could very well have 2 touchdowns in the first half and be done and outscore Mooney, where it's like it's a rougher path for Mooney to outscore Evans, I think. So I think I'm going with Evans in that situation. So Evans and JSN there. And then Sean says that's who I was leaning for. My super flex is Brees Hall, only because of the injury. Should I be worried about starting Hall? I mean, worried in the sense of I would temper my expectations of like I don't think he's going to have a crazy 200-yard game. Seattle defense has been pretty good, but Seattle defense is also weaker on the road, which they are. It's a home game for the Jets coming off the bye. He didn't practice a lot, but he's going to be playing. That's good enough for me. I would count on, as opposed to counting on like a 25 to 30 fantasy point game, I would project it more for like 15 to 20 fantasy points. And if he goes over that, then I would consider that like gravy. Like, it's like, okay, cool. He went over what I was expecting. So I would say between 15 and 20 fantasy points is about the projection. So if he goes over 20, then great. And if he goes under 15, fuck, right? And I want to just point out too, I love that in your super flex position, which is usually people will try to fit a quarterback in no matter what. If you have a situation like this where you have a Brees Hall type player, he should be in that super flex above any kind of mediocre quarterback like a Bryce Young. I mean, I was going to say Aiden O'Connell, but he actually rocked out against the Chiefs. Like whoever was starting for the Giants, Cooper Rush, like those kind of middling type quarterback plays. I would always take the extreme upside of like a really good a stud running back or stud wide receiver in my super flex above just some middling quarterback. So I just like that you're not committed to having to play the quarterback there. All right, got a couple more questions from the Advice Network. If you guys got some more questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll go till about, I think, 9:30, and then we'll cut out. Call it a short day. All right, we got Tyrone Tracy Jr. Oh, wait, no, that already passed, so never mind. This person was asking, is Brees Hall going to play? Yes, he is. Oh, here we go. Michael Pittman with Downs out or Cade Otton. I would go with Cade Otton. I know last week was a bust. He only had the one reception for 30 yards, and I was very heavy on him last week. I'm going back to the well this week. I just think the matchup is too good to ignore against Carolina. 32nd against fantasy tight ends. They are the best matchup this year for fantasy tight ends, and so that's who I am going with. Ooh, here we go. Kirk Cousins or Geno Smith. I like that. Okay. Man, Chargers defense or Jets defense. I feel like the Chargers defense is better. Jets have definitely been really. There's something I have like this hankering feeling. This whole thing with Aaron Rodgers and the like reports that he was going to be benched for the rest of the season, and this is the end of the Rodgers era with the Jets and yada yada. There's something about Rodgers specifically that I think runs on spite, and it would not shock me completely, if the Jets came out and actually upset the Seahawks and won this game. And it wouldn't even shock me if they did it decisively at home, coming off the bye week. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but again, it's just like I don't think it's impossible, and so I I just think the matchup might be tougher for Gino. And they have similar weapons. Like I know JSN has wildly outperformed, but it's like Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. It's like, I think I would go with Kirk Cousins. I just think the Falcons and Chargers are going to be a little bit more of a shootout. Yeah, I think final answer. I'm going with Kirk Cousins there. That's oof. That's a tough one though. Okay, here we go. Brian Thomas Jr. or Jordan Addison, full PPR. Are we chasing points with Jordan Addison? It is a good match against Arizona. This just feels like it's going to swing back and forth between Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I don't know that Sam Darnold is capable of supporting 3 offensive weapons at the same time at all times, right? So it's like, can Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson all have big games here? Possible. I don't think it's likely. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is the primary target on his team, and especially in terms of deep targets. And I don't think the Houston matchup is as scary as people think. It is Trevor Lawrence that should be playing today. And as much as I've honestly been dumping my Brian Thomas Jr. shares because I've been worried about not necessarily this matchup, but the playoff matchup, the playoff schedule for the Jaguars, combined with the Trevor Lawrence shoulder injury, the record for this team, they could easily just shut things down. So Brian Thomas Jr. has made me very nervous. I think this might be the last game I would play him with not much confidence over Jordan Addison. I think, yeah, that's a rough one. Okay. Scary Terry or Devontae Adams full PPR. It's been rough because I feel like Scary Terry has been extremely boomer bust. I have him in my main redraft league. And it's like if he isn't getting touchdowns, he's not really doing it like the way you would think in terms of volume. So I'm just pulling it up right now. Like the targets have been so inconsistent, especially the last 4 weeks. It was a lot better before. Like so the last 4 weeks you have 6, 2, 6, 3. That's gross for fantasy football. And the only way he was really getting it done was like, again, he had 2 for 19, but it was 2 touchdowns. And then he had the 6 target game, 5 for 113. Then he busted 1 for 10, and then he had 5 for 102 in the tutty. But it was like almost all of it came on that crazy 80-yard play at the end of the game, which literally woke me up out of a cold sleep. I was falling asleep on my couch, and that play literally shook me alive. And it's a tough matchup against Tennessee, but they are at home. And I think the way you beat Tennessee is one of these pass funnel defenses where they are really tough to run against. And so they kind of force you to pass the ball more. Yeah, I think I'm going Scary Terry there. That's a tough one, though. All right, we got some questions in the comments, and then we will get on out of here. Albert, my man, what is up? Darnell Mooney or Calvin Ridley full PPR? Well, we were just talking about that Washington Commanders matchup. And their defense was on fire to begin the season. I think it has relented a little bit. I look at what the Dallas Cowboys were able to do against them. That is a tough one. I like them. I do like Darnell Mooney. This is where I'm struggling So I think the safer floor is Darnell Mooney. But if you need the ceiling, I think the ceiling is with Calvin Ridley. So if you had Thanksgiving matchups, and especially if those matchups went really well for you, if you're in the lead, again, going back to Raw Boy at the top of the show, had Brock Bowers and Josh Jacobs in his lineup. If you have a good lineup already set, I think I would take the floor play of Darnell Mooney. In a full PPR league, I think he's a safer floor. However, if I'm down bad and I need a big game, like I need the 50-yard tutty to get that like extra boost score, I think that's where I would go with Ridley and hope that, Will Levis hits him for the big one and not NWH or, Chico Conco. Like Will Levis, for all his faults, he'll throw it down the field. So again, if you're chasing a ceiling, I think it is with Calvin Ridley. But if you need a floor play, I think Mooney is a safer floor. So it just kind of depends on your lineup. Again, I'll just pull up an example for myself. I have a lineup where I have DJ Moore, but my opponent had Brock Bowers and who else did he have? He has a good lineup right now. Yeah, he's got Brock Bowers. I guess Mahomes and Amon-Ra are kind of let's pull up a different example here. Oh, here sorry, I clicked on the wrong. In my other home league, which is my other $150 league, I have Goff, A-Shane, and Moore have already played. So it's like, and my opponent had DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet, who kind of busted. Travis Kelce was kind of So I'm in a good position here. If I was making this decision in this league, I would pick Darnell Mooney. And yet in another league that I'm playing where the other person is already kind of far ahead, that's where I'm like, you know what? I think I would take Ridley in that situation. So I'm going to say like a 60-40 on the Mooney side because I feel like more often you're going to need that floor play. Rachel, what's up? One flex out of Hawk, Bateman, Thielen, Rashad White. Good morning, Jack. Good morning to you too, Rachel. Oh, this is a tough decision. Bateman is out for me. He's been more consistent than usual, but he definitely has the worst floor out of these guys. Thielen is an interesting case. He had 3 for 60-ish last week. Rashad White is an extremely safe play because I think the Bucs are just going to lean on the running backs. And I think it's going to be similar to last week, like what we saw with Bucky Irving kind of leading the way and then Rashad White backing him up. Hawkinson, though, has been incredibly involved. Oh, I'm going to say kind of the same thing I said to Albert. If you are chasing a ceiling play here, I would go with Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson has the ability to, again, tough matchup against Arizona, but I think he's the one that has the ability to kind of get the big, like, 7 for 100-yard game, kind of like he did last week. I don't see that coming from Bateman or Thielen, really. If you need a floor play, though, I actually think Rashad White is probably the safest floor play. Like, Carolina is just really bad against running backs, and I think Rashad White and Bucky Irving are both excellent plays today, so I would rank this, again, just by a teensy bit, and it's a little scarier because it's a tougher matchup. Hawkinson, Rashad White, Thielen, and Bateman. Frizzle, yo, what up? Standard flex, Parker Washington, Adonai Mitchell, Pop Douglas, or Alec Pierce. Oh, we are deep diving on this. Oh, my. Oh, wow. Okay. This is slam dunk question of the week.
Do you want to see me dunk?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. Are you guys ready? I'm okay. No, don't worry.
Does that always happen?
Parker Washington's out for me. He's not a thing. He's like fetch. I want to say Adonai Mitchell, but I just don't believe in it with Anthony Richardson. I think you go, if you need the safer floor play, I would go with Pop Douglas. He's at least been more involved, especially on a PPR level. But if you need the spike, again, and this is a good example. If you're in a really deep league like this and you're kind of down enough that you know you're going to need a big spike week from somebody to get you over the hill, Alec Pierce is the answer. Like, because it's an all or nothing play. It's like he's going to get you a huge 50-yard reception, possibly a touchdown, or fuck all. Whereas like Pop Douglas is the safe, like, if you need 6 for 50, you need 10 points out of a guy just to make sure that you get points out of that position. Pop Douglas is your safest play, so he's your floor. But if you need the ceiling play, it's Alec Pierce. Slim Jim, what's up? Should I play Kyle Pitts, Ingram, or Dalton Schultz at tight end today? Yo, Kyle Pitts, you son of a bitch. I want to say Kyle Pitts, and I'm hoping we don't have to do the who scored more than Kyle Pitts segment this week. Again, I think Evan Ingram's floor is so safe. It's like he's just so necessary to this offense and to Trevor Lawrence across the middle of that field. He's not coming out with less than 3-4 receptions a game, and even that feels conservative to say. If you are, again, the theme today, guys, is if you are, look at your lineup, look at your opponent's lineup, and what happened. We've got 4 games of data. You can kind of look at the projections, and they are a little closer and better as to what should and should not happen. Do you think you need the big ceiling game to get over the hump? Play Kyle Pitts. Do you think you need the floor play? Just like I need 100%. I cannot have this guy show up and get 0 points. I need 8 points in my lineup minimum, like 6 to 8 points. That's Ingram. So that's where I'm like basing a lot of these decisions today. So Kyle Pitts for ceiling and Evan Ingram for floor. Jesus. Frizzle with some context. Mentioned Parker because he probably has best wide receiver cornerback match. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't matter. Forgot to throw in Xavier Legette. Yeah, Legette. I like Legette because it's a decent matchup against the Bucs. And again, out of the guys you were saying before, I think I would have Legette definitely over Parker Washington and Adonai Mitchell. I still think, again, if you're going for a pure ceiling play, then Legette and Alec Pierce. But I actually think I would rank Legette just above Pierce even. So I actually think I would take Legette and Pop Douglas if I needed the floor. But if you need the ceiling, go Legette and Alec Pierce. Diakra Mooney, what's going on? Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Start 4, Jennings, Pittman, Debo, Hawkinson, Otten, Edwards, and Dell. Otten for sure. Again, I've mentioned it a couple times already. Best matchup for fantasy tight ends is against the Carolina Panthers. They're 32nd in the league. I like Tank Dell today. I think he could pop. It's a scary one. But I just feel like today is a Tank Dell day. I don't know why. The Gus Bus. Yeah. No, I think I'm going. Okay, Brock Purdy is in, so that's going to change things. So I think with Purdy, I'm going Jennings, Otten, Dell, and Hawkinson. Final answer. Jennings, Hawkinson, Otten, Dell. Rarely would I go double tight end, but Pittman scares me. Debo's been very hit or miss. And Gus Bus, it's like if he gets a touchdown, he'll have 12-ish to 15 fantasy points, and if he doesn't, you're screwed. In a must-win, even though it's tied right now. Yeah, so this is a good question. I love that you asked this question. In a must-win, and even if it's tied, you go with the floor play or ceiling play. I think you split the difference, right? I think both Leggett and Pierce are ceiling plays. So if that's the concern, I think Leggett and Pop Douglas is probably the safest play of all. That if it's me, that's probably where I end up landing at the end of all of it, is with Pop Douglas and Leggett. Just because then to me it's like I have a floor play in, and then I have a ceiling play. I think the matchup with the Bucks, it's like you're banking on Leggett finding the end zone. And I think he has a better chance of doing that than Alec Pierce. So I think final answer Leggett and Pop Douglas. That's going to be it for me today. We'll drop out of here. We will be back next week, a little bit on the fly, but I'm hoping to be doing the reaction show. It's going to be the reaction show for Monday is going to be a pre-record dropping on Monday evening, maybe on Tuesday. We will see, but otherwise we'll be back next Thursday for an all-important start-sit show for the Thursday matchups for your final week of the regular season of fantasy football to get you to your playoffs. And then we'll be back next Sunday again to do this shindig one more time. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching and for dropping your questions today. Make sure you like and subscribe. It always helps with the algorithm stuff. But until the next time, I'll catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes